Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I'm very excited to be joined again by Gwen, and now with her partner, Jason, for the BPD relationship series. So, Gwen, nice to see you again, and Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Thanks so much.
Good seeing you again, Lori. And
yeah.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be back. I'm very excited for today's episode and also share me and my partner's journey.
Yes, totally. I'm so excited about it. So maybe just to kind of start, Gwen, we know all about you, but Jason, what's your deal? Who are you? What do you do for fun?
I enjoy cooking for fun. I enjoy spending time with my partner and mostly just trying to have a good time.
Awesome. Cool. Amazing. Cooking and spending time with your partner. Those are good combinations. Good find, Gwen. And how did you guys first meet?
So we actually met on an airplane.
No way.
Yeah, very organic. Him and I are both like very surprised, as well as our friends, because nowadays people find each other on social media and dating apps. So I joke about it being divine intervention. Yeah.
Fair. So how did you meet on an airplane? Like you were sitting next to each other and you just started talking?
Yeah, so we did just sit right next to each other. Gwen likes to tell the story how we were going to Atlanta and we were the only Asian people on the plane, and they seated all of us in the same rows. And I guess we did just start talking, and it happened very organically somehow in this world of dating apps.
Yeah. That's hilarious. They're like, this is the row where we put all of the Asian people, and you two just happened to talk to each other.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny because I actually wanted to switch seats, but the air hostess was like, "No, you'll like the seat. There's a lot of leg room." I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'll sit here." Ended up being excellent decision.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I actually can't believe that, because when I get on a plane, I'm like, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me.
I know.
I literally want to talk to no one. And so other than being the two only Asians on the plane, what else drew you guys to each other? What made you talk to each other? Like
you said, usually when people go on an airplane, they kind of keep to themselves. And I'm like that too. And his personality is also introverted. But I think we just ended up having so much overlap. And also, like, both of us are very open to new experiences in terms of, like, getting to know new people. And it just happened very organically, even though we're not the extravagant and very talkative and very outgoing type. But because, like, the more we talked, the more similarities we found about each other. So we ended up talking, like, the whole flight for 4.5 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were probably disturbing a lot of people on the flight. And I think one of the things that stuck out to both of us was how we were able to have a prolonged conversation like this without, feeling too emotionally overwhelmed or tired. Because, when you have long conversations, it can be relatively overwhelming, especially with a stranger. And I didn't get that. I don't think Gwen got that either. So that was great.
Yeah, that's honestly such a huge piece of, like, you're not trying to perform and it's like literally just a stranger that you just met. It's kind of impressive. And so when was that?
That was actually back in July. So it's been about 5 or 6 months. And I think him and I are just naturally curious, and we tend to be intellectual. So then there were a lot of topics that we found interesting, and it just ended up like going deeper and deeper, and then somehow like went into family trauma. Found out
which you have plenty of.
Yeah. And then we started like talking a bit about family trauma, and then I was like, oh my gosh, you take your grandma grocery shopping on the weekend. That's so cute. I really admire that because I do the same. Yeah.
There almost was sort of a collective consciousness for us where, we shared a lot of the same experiences, or in the sense molded by the same experiences. And it was interesting talking about how we cope with that and so on. Yeah.
Well, and for the listeners, if you haven't heard Gwen's original story, obviously I'll link that in the show notes so that you can go back and kind of hear the full thing. But I mean, Gwen has a lot of family trauma, obviously. That's kind of the whole point of our first hour-long conversation and her story on Brain Stories. So, Jason, did that freak you out?
Not really, because it was similar to my experience with my family as well. So there was almost a sense of solidarity, and it was actually kind of fun talking about it. Yeah.
Nothing like trauma bonding to make people
Yeah,
fall in love.
exactly.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
and did you already know about borderline personality disorder at that point? Yeah, you would have back then, right, Gwen?
So here's the thing, like, remember, like, at the end of last episode, like, the question was, like, what do you like about people with BPD? And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, people with BPD are so interesting. They're so
Yeah,
unique.
totally.
Yeah,
Very.
because normal is boring. And that was just, like, the sense that I got from him is that, like, um, I don't really fit into any norm, nor do I want to. And he's the same. And I picked that up. So it's just like a different type of energy, different type of aura. You stand out in a crowd. They say things that are pretty unconventional, but interesting. So I think like I naturally gravitate towards people like that. And I'm also very curious. So it just ended up being like one day after another, and the topic of BPD didn't come up until the second day, I think. Yeah.
That's still pretty early. And Jason, had you heard of BPD before?
Yes, I have. So I believe Gwen mentioned it earlier as well, or maybe in the past podcast. I believe a few of my therapists or mental health professionals in the past have probably speculated that I may or may not have this disorder as well. So it
Okay,
was
interesting.
good talking to my partner, who, as you probably already know, is also a mental health professional, and being able to shed some light on it as a collective experience, I thought was something good to do.
Interesting. Yeah. And how does that show up for you? Like, what are your therapists seeing that kind of leads you in that path, Jason? Or Gwen?
I think Gwen wants to say something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like going back to what I said about like the curiosity part, like I just found like the way he operated to be very fascinating because I love being able to analyze and try to like understand human behavior. And part of it is because of growing up in a family of people with BPD. So you constantly have to really try to look at all the nuances and learn to decipher human behavior and decode. So that was like almost like a habit that I picked up. And then with him, I wasn't able to read him very easily. Yeah, it's like the more questions I asked, the more confused I got. Like, okay,
Interesting.
so yeah, so how are you really like? And then that just got me like very intrigued and wanting to find out more answers. And I think like that's exactly where the BPD plays out because it's not something that's easily describable. It's unpredictable. It's unconventional. Some of the behaviors and coping mechanism and defense mechanisms make no sense, but they're intelligent in their own ways. I think that part is also like the intense emotions. You don't get a lot of people that just naturally get really excited over small
Mm-hmm.
things, or people that have very, very strong reactions to negativity or sadness. It hits us at a deeper level. It'll be like just normal sadness for normal people, but then for us, it's like a deep sense of tragedy, deep sense of loss, grief, isolation, and disconnection. So I think like I resonated with him in terms of these patterns, and that's what really drew me to him because I always felt like I was too much for other people and
Right.
that I couldn't relate to anybody. But then it's like, oh, I found this like other person who doesn't make me feel like I don't belong. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Jason, does that resonate with you as well? Do you feel seen and understood in a different
Yeah,
way here?
I think so, because one of the things that me and Gwen have in common is that we're really not afraid to, and we're not really afraid to embarrass ourselves. We don't really take ourselves too seriously, and in usually say at work or with your family, you kind of have to put up that front. You kind of have to, in a sense, be normal. And yeah, when we're with each other, we can kind of react in certain ways that other people would think are strange or interesting or loud or annoying, but we don't see it as loud or annoying because these are behaviors we exhibit ourselves that the other party exhibits as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what does that look like when, the loud and exciting and that kind of thing is the really fun parts of BPD, but there's obviously some really shit parts of BPD too. So how does that look when the two of you are both in a place of dysregulation?
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because we actually had a little bit of a riff the past week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like classic approach avoidance conflict being played out. Jason can elaborate more on that.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. So, the way that I deal with stress is to be avoidant and to detach. And whereas Gwen, in her own words, she will chase and have very anxious attachment styles. And in those situations, the interplay of these, it's can be a little bit negative in a sense where the way how she deals with her stress adds to my stress and the way that I deal with my stress may add to hers. And I think we're getting a lot better at meeting in the middle because to be on either extreme, I think, is unhealthy. And quite frankly, we do stand on both extremes. And as long as we're willing to work through it and be self-aware about it because self-awareness kind of makes things a lot easier. We can work towards healthier behaviors together, meeting more sorts in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you seem to be both very self-aware and willing to have these conversations, which is like 95% of it, I feel like.
Yeah. Initially I was scared and I was afraid to go into the relationship. And I mentioned this last episode because I've had so many failed relationships and I was
Same
pretty
here.
abusive. Yeah, I was abusive to my partners. Not justifying it with BPD, but a lot of it was fear of abandonment. A lot of it was anger and was resentment attributed to them, even though it wasn't because of them. The way I treated them was unfair and unhealthy. So I was scared that I was going to be on the opposite end of it this time around because I know that I'm self aware and that I want to be better. I want to heal. I want to recover. But at the time, I didn't know where he was in his recovery journey. I don't know how much understanding this person has of their condition. Have they tried to manage, and do they manage in healthy adaptive ways? All of these things I didn't have answers to, but I think the positives was so rewarding. It was so joyful, and it was unlike anything I've experienced in the past. It was very fulfilling, the good times we have together. So that helped me get through the challenges and the moments of disagreements and arguments, which inevitably brings out fear of abandonment in me, but it was what motivates me to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it is also a lot better than we expected in the sense that we had a conversation. I think it was last week where Gwen did tell me this relationship is actually a lot more emotionally stable and a lot less dysregulated than she previously imagined that it was going to be, and I feel the same. So it was interesting in the sense where we had a calming effect on each other. Maybe being able to understand these behaviors helps us avoid lashing out or becoming more emotionally dysregulated, as long as the will to have a conversation and be mature about it is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And in what ways have you worked on your own mental health to get to a place where you're able to have that understanding and commitment to conversation?
Yeah, so I think this goes back to not being on extremes about meshing with your partner, where you don't want to be too caught up in their flow, just as you don't want them to be caught up in your flow. There is an identity to be preserved outside of your relationship. And when you want to rush into things a little bit too quickly, sometimes you lose sight of how that's important. So being able to remember that helps us, or I would imagine helps the both of us, be a lot healthier with our attachment styles.
Yeah, thoughts on that, Gwen?
The part where you mentioned like both of you guys are very reflective and self-aware, I think that is such an important component of healthy relationship. Whether or not this person has trauma, whether or not they have a mental illness, the two people's level of awareness, understanding, and meaning making of their past experiences and how that affects their current attachment style is so important. Because when you have a large discrepancy between the two, they're not on the same level in terms of emotional maturity. So one is always going to be constrained by their avoidant attachment, let's say, and while the other one is constant living in survival mode. And they'll never have the language and they'll never have the same understanding of how the other person operate because they don't get it. So then that's how two people will constantly hurt each other. So I think I'm really lucky in that I met him, because the stereotypical statement is that men don't go into therapy and
Right.
men are afraid of looking at the more vulnerable aspects of themselves. So
we're not even afraid, just like conditioned to not do that, right? Like it's
right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's afraid always, but yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Cultural norms, societal norms, as well as gender norms doesn't foster an environment of vulnerability, of expression of emotions. So it's harder for women with BPD to find somebody who also have these traumatic experiences, but at the same time, understanding that externalizing them in angry and quote unquote male accepted behaviors is not okay, but to take the more painful path and look inward and demonstrating humility and accountability. So I think that's where I feel very grateful for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it goes both ways, because as hard as it is to admit that, you made a mistake, and looking into why you made that mistake may be particularly painful, ultimately it's very productive, because, we don't want to repeat certain problems or certain issues, and having vicious patterns having vicious patterns return is, not exactly the best thing in a relationship. So being cognizant of that has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and when those quote unquote like vicious parts come up, because they're gonna come up, right, in some way or another, how do you get through that together without triggering each other again?
Yeah, I do see effort on both of our ends. Like, for example, the rift that we mentioned that happened last week, for me to challenge my automatic maladaptive response is for me to not reach out, is to sit with my discomfort. Is to challenge my emotional brain by checking the facts. Okay, yes, we haven't talked for 5 days. But the logic is that he had explicitly told me that he needs more time.
Right.
So my nervous system reacts in panic automatically because it has its own logic and reason. So I had to constantly remind myself, well, he literally said he just needs some time and he's going to come back to normal on Thursday. So let's just wait it out and ride the wave. Surf the urge until Thursday. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy going through each of the days.
But it sounds like for you, it's taking that own action and not trying to put that on the other person, not forcing him to cave to whatever boundary he needed, and just, like you said, sitting in that discomfort and processing that on your own, even though that's really difficult.
Yeah, and what made it easier for me and what made it more comfortable for me was that he recognized that, okay, I panic and fear of abandonment kick in when I'm left to myself. Like the fact that he took my perspective made it a lot more comforting. Like I'm not doing this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all of my responsibility to manage my own wound, my own attachment injury. I'm not doing this alone. And that he is also helping me by checking in for like once a day or once every 2 days to ensure that I'm okay. So
Right,
that,
he's still there even if he's taking
yes,
time.
right, exactly. So that doesn't feel like I'm managing this all by myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on that, Jason? I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Oh yeah. So when that happened, it was also uncomfortable for me in the sense where I sat on the other extreme, where for me to manage my stress, I kind of needed to shut down and just leave myself to my own devices. Just as it was difficult for Gwen to, just sit and ride the wave, it was kind of difficult for me to reach out and kind of put myself out in the world again, or outside of the protective little bubble of recovery in a sense. And it is less of a intrusion upon either of our boundaries and more of moving our boundaries to become more comfortable in line with each other. And this goes back to what I was saying about meeting in the middle. Just as I have to become more comfortable with reaching out in, moments or times of distress, Gwen has become more comfortable with, not feeling distress in situations where logically distress probably shouldn't be felt or would be unproductive for distress to be felt.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Gwen talked about riding the wave, surfing the urge. Jason, when you're in that space where you're feeling like you need that additional space and your automatic reaction is to detach, what do you do to take care of yourself?
One of the things is that I like to do is do things that remind myself that I am me, that
Mm-hmm.
I have hobbies and a life of my own outside of other people, not just my partner, but my family. There is sort of this rich inner world that I enjoy cultivating. And
Mm-hmm.
working on that sort of refreshes me a lot.
Yeah, it's great to have your own identity, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we see in like movies and things people becoming so enmeshed with another person that they have no solo interests or experience, and that's not a healthy thing for anyone. It's so good to have your own things. Even if I think sometimes for BPD, I mean, the amount of times I've been like, I'm going to take up snowboarding because this guy I like's into snowboarding, right? Changing yourself to try and be like the other person is one of those like self-identity issue things, but it doesn't help anyone. It's so much better. My husband plays Dungeons and Dragons. I literally could not. You couldn't pay me to pay Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
so
his like
funny.
favorite thing in the world, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like then he does his thing, I do my thing, and it's amazing. And I love that for us because it's really helpful to have that space.
Yeah.
Pretty funny though, because Gwen, did you want to go?
No, you
Okay,
can go ahead.
yes, because Gwen, we have a friend. He likes playing Dungeons Dragons too, and his wife likes crocheting. So the joke is that when we hang out, I just play Dungeons and Dragons with the man, and then Gwen just goes crochet with
Yeah,
his wife. So it's nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Me and our friend's wife were saying how like it's the weekend. We don't want to think. We
I know.
want to just be brainless. This type of
Totally.
game requires thinking.
Exactly. I don't have the imagination for it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Going back to what I was talking about the approach avoidance conflict that happens between him and I. And the other thing I need to be very aware of is another BPD symptom of idealization and
Mm-hmm.
devaluation. So the devaluation hasn't happened yet, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But I definitely noticed myself with the idealization at the first. in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because like I talked about in the beginning of our conversation, like I was very enamored with him, and rightfully so, because
look at him.
Well, rightfully so, in the way that a lot of men are in touch with their feelings,
Yeah.
and they feel a lot of shame. So it is not easy for me to find somebody who is openly comfortable to his level of naming trauma, and having the emotional intelligence and awareness to articulate these things. So yes, rightfully so, I was enamored with him, but I had to really check myself to not go overboard with the idealization, because I showed him my diary entry. Like there was like 5 diary entries of me just like romanticizing our encounter, like thinking this is like divine intervention, and that we're star-crossed lovers and that we're soulmates. We're destined to be together in eternity. Yeah, so I really have to check myself. Like I have my rose tinted glasses on because this is the beginning. This is the honeymoon phase. We're getting to know each other. I know that if I continue the pattern of over idealization, putting this person on a pedestal, I'm going to end up getting very angry.
Yes.
And
that fall will happen.
Yes. Very disappointed. Yeah. And it's going to turn into devaluation and hatred. So that was what I had to check myself on. And reminding myself that he has his flaws. I just don't see them yet in the beginning of our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was also very helpful that in the beginning, Gwen voiced to me that she had this pattern. This is something that she would exhibit. And again, I'm willing to work with her on that. And and one of the funnier things was in a more in your face way of fighting the over idealization, I would sort of blatantly remind her that I have a lot of faults as well. Like, hey, you know, I do so and so, or like, hey, my hair smells bad. I'm gonna send you an ugly selfie or something like that. And just to remind her not to put anyone, especially your partner, on this pedestal where not only do you expect perfection, you have unrealistic expectations and boundaries. And while you should still have expectations and boundaries in any healthy relationship, you don't want to have them be completely unrealistic. It's good to remind each other of that every once in a while, whichever way we like to.
And like, other than the fact that Gwen obviously is perfect, how does that make you feel? Yeah, right? Look at that. Yeah. She's the exception to the rule. But Jason, do you feel that same sense of like putting people on pedestals and devaluation in your life? Or is that one of the kind of symptoms that maybe you don't identify with?
So Gwen mentioned earlier how she, in the beginning of her relationships, she usually tends to over romanticize and over idealize. I sit firmly on the other end of the spectrum where the second I meet a person, I just start picking out everything that's kind of wrong with my devalue, whereas she tends to do the opposite. So
which makes sense because you're avoidant. And so you're probably trying to push yourself away by seeing flaws, is what I would assume.
Correct.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's I've had so many of those romanticized moments, Gwen. Like the amount of times I've been on a Tinder date and texted people saying like, "Oh my God, I met my future husband. We're going to have 6 babies and live happily ever after." Yes. And I never saw him ever again. Like, you know what I mean? It's happened far too many times. Yeah. And I can totally see where your story is like literally like a rom-com little intro. So how do you not overthink that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Honestly, like I tell all my friends every time I got a new boyfriend, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna get married. I found the one." So then this time around when I said that, they were like, one of them was like, "How many soulmates do you think you're gonna meet until the eventual kiss of death?"
Oh my God. You're like, no, this is the last one, I promise.
one because he has BPD too. And then she was like, oh, okay, then you guys are a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just going back to how we have very opposite ways of dealing with it. Just as she was, gushing to her friends about, her experiences and so on, I'm just telling my friends like, hey, I met a cool lady, just a single text. So
right.
Yeah.
You're also a dude though. Like my husband will go and to have a guy's weekend and I'll be like, "Oh my god, so how's this person?" And he's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You were just in Whistler with this person for a week. Like, what do you mean you don't know how he's doing?" "Oh, like, is his wife pregnant yet?" "Don't know, I didn't ask." Okay, well, like, my god, like, I don't understand how you do that. Whereas women are like, my best friend's husband is always shocked because something will happen and like an hour later I'll see him and be like, "So what about this?" He's like, "How do you know about that already?" I'm like, "Oh, because anything that happens to my best friend I find out about." Like, it's just like instant.
You don't just marry the person, you also marry their friends.
Yes,
friends,
100%.
partner stories and everything.
Yeah, I know everything that happens in that situation for sure.
There's also another. Sorry, do you want to go first?
No, just a little thing about how female friendships are you can talk for hours and hours, or male friendships are just like, okay, let's just drink a beer and talk in one syllable and play video games for 8
literally
hours. Yeah,
exactly, 100%. It's so funny. It's so different.
Yeah. Well, all right, back to you, Gwen.
Yeah, a couple of things what you mentioned brought up for me, like the example you used about I met a guy who likes snowboarding, so I'm going to take up snowboarding and make that all about my life. And I think that is a pattern that I've recognized in my past dating history that I've really become intentional about overcoming is organizing my life around the other person. So like every time I feel like this is it, and no, they were never it. But in the moment I feel like this is it. So I'm going to get ready to just essentially redrafting my life goals. So, okay, instead of like focusing on my career or investing my time into my education or professionally, I started thinking about, okay, at what age am I going to get married? At what age am I going to have kids with them? When am I going to settle with them? And I completely stopped designing my own life. And
right. It's just about the partnership.
Right. It was just about the partnership. And I noticed myself doing that over and over again. So then this time around, when the fear of abandonment kicks in, I have to remind myself, well, I'm an individualized person. I am differentiated from him. And that there's it really to be mindful and manage the urge to fuse identity with the other person, to individualize and remind myself what makes me me. I have my own friends. I have my own ambition and aspirations and goals in life. I have my community and as well as my professional community and my aspirations and my career. So all of these things that exist outside of him. So that's something I still have to manage when the urge to fuse comes up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing.
And how do you manage that? Sorry, just to jump in. How are you trying to manage that?
Yeah. So for example, my mind always goes to worst case scenarios. So like when we have like a disagreement or argument, I go, oh my gosh, we're not gonna be together anymore. We're gonna break up. We're gonna go separate ways. So how am I gonna live? And then I start naming the things that make me me, make me enjoy living my life, that remind myself that I'm okay on my own because I have these wonderful, amazing friends who care about me. I have my chosen family, and there is a purpose and meaning to my life. And I think that's so important because when people struggle with lack of identity, which is a classic BPD symptom, lack of identity, and that their whole purpose is to attach onto another person, it becomes very hard to form your own life and individualize into your own person. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Just reminding yourself that being with the other person isn't not sorry, not reminding yourself that not being with the other person is not the end. You still have your own life that you can have a great time with, and that kind of takes the stakes off. Like even if you still want to be with the person, it helps remove that like I'm gonna die if I'm not with this person stake that I
Yeah,
think we run
exactly.
into.
Yeah, the psyche annihilation, which is feeling like I don't exist
Yes.
without the other person. It's essentially the same as death. It's a
Hmm.
very deep sense of existential fear
Hmm.
that people with BPD struggle with. And it takes a lot of time to challenge that because you have to invest time and effort into all of these aspects outside of romantic relationship, which takes exploring, which takes trial and error, and it takes a lot of risk
Hmm.
and a lot of courage because you face so many failures and rejection along the way. Um, so the natural urge is just to attach onto somebody that
Yeah.
makes me feel safe. That's the automatic shortcut that we tend to resort to. And I think is taking the path of more resistance, of more obstacle, but ultimately will help one grow the most because um, we're not, our goal is not to be happy, but to grow, but to heal and recover. And that requires pain,
Hmm.
not comfort. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Is there anything that you guys wanted to say that we haven't gotten into yet?
Um, I think another one that I struggled a lot with in the beginning of the relationship that probably a lot of people with BPD also struggle with was the core sense of defectiveness. And
Mm.
I talked to my friends and my family, my little cousins about this is like, okay, I met this really cool guy on the plane and we talked for 4.5 hours. And each day that we go on, we talk for like 8 hours because we have so many similarities and similar interests. But he's too good for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a defective person.
Yeah. It was just
He
like,
doesn't know how defective I am. Otherwise, if
yeah.
he did, he wouldn't want to be with me. Is that part of your thought process?
Um, I think mine was even worse than that. I think mine
Mm.
was just
And just
like,
to butt in, I think it was also helpful of me to remind her that I was also incredibly defective as well. So,
Right.
just in the sense that she doesn't want to view me on a pedestal, and I want her to view me as who I am and not this over idealized version of what she
Mm.
believes I am. So it's always good to stay grounded and reminding yourself that your emotions are amplified, where you feel like it's either everything is awesome or everything sucks and there's no in between, but rather you should actually feel somewhere more in the middle of that, and you probably do with the but with amplified emotions you
Hmm.
become dysregulated and it's harder to have more rational thoughts. So it's always good to
Yeah, and the
keep that
importance
in
of
mind.
recognizing those extremes,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Is you got to recognize them before you can do anything about them.
yeah. And yeah, and what he was saying about like idealization and along with this core belief of defectiveness and unworthiness. So both of those things made it hard for me to
Mm.
continue in the beginning. Because I felt so uncomfortable. And it just like the thought and the feeling of being with somebody that I feel like is too good for me automatically triggers this sense of fear and abandonment. I'm not even going to get close to this person because
Mm.
they're just going to use me. They're just going to dump me. They're just going to leave me after they
Hmm.
get bored with me. So I need to protect myself by not engaging with them. So, and he noticed this too. So, like, I didn't open up about myself until like the fifth day.
Hmm.
Most of the time, I was just listening to him and not saying anything about myself because I was drawn to this person, but I honestly feel like he was out of my league because I'm just a defective being because that was the way that my family members have treated. That was the way that attachment figures, people of authority in my life, have treated me growing up. So that was an internalized message that I feel about myself. I'm just a damaged good. And it felt like ants crawling on my skin the moment I get close to him. That sense of uneasiness and wanting to get out and run. So it took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of like courage to own up to that sense of shame, and to talk about it with my friends, and for them to empathically, gently challenge that, to say, you shouldn't feel that about yourself. And you shouldn't think that of him. You shouldn't think that anybody is too good for you. And you should feel confident in yourself, your wisdom, your grace, your own attractiveness, and that he should feel lucky to be with you.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think like having supportive friends that really care about me and see the aspects in which I sparkle, in which I draw people in, was very healing in moments I couldn't give to myself.
Yeah, you are special. You are out of his league. Fuck him. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, I think that's so important. I have problems with that too, where I'm just like, I'm a flawed human. Yeah. And maybe people don't see it. Mm-hmm. But I am a flawed. Yeah, it's a vicious spiral, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what message of hope do each of you have for someone with BPD who wants a healthy, loving relationship but doesn't think that it's possible for them?
Well, at least try. Don't think that it's impossible. Just put yourself out there. Just treat it like job interviews. You send out 100 applications. If one hits, you have a job. So there you go. Just at least try. Be self-aware. Be yourself. It's not that hard.
That's great. Yeah. I miss the job interviews of online dating.
Yes, they are just job interviews.
They're fun too. I mean, I met a lot of really cool people online dating that were just like interesting characters. I don't like regret not dating them long term, but they were interesting people to talk to, and I enjoy that.
It's better than sitting alone at home most of the time.
Yeah, not always, but most of the time.
Yeah,
yes.
Most of the time. That is the caveat.
Yeah. Gwen, how about you?
I think it's not realistic to want somebody who is going to be at the exact same level of awareness, because people grow at different pace. However, they have to have the capacity and the willingness to learn. Because as we get older, and I'm in my early 30s, people become more consolidated in the ways that they protect themselves. So if they're going to be avoidant, chances are they're going to continue to be more avoidant unless they demonstrate capacity to learn and change. So I think in a perfect world, you meet somebody who is able to mirror the same things and understand where these defenses come from. But most of us don't. So it's about finding somebody who is empathic, somebody who's compassionate, somebody who's a good person on their own.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't want to hurt you, and they wouldn't bear to see you be in a state of destruction, a state of chaos, and a state of psychological annihilation. Somebody who would want to help support you to mend your attachment wound and provide that corrective experience of secure attachment.
Well said. Well, thank you both so much for coming on. It's been so great getting to, learn a little bit more about you, Gwen, and get to know you, Jason, and just to see your awesome relationship growing is so cool. I think, honestly, that's like the cutest little meet cute story I've ever heard in my life. So
thank you.
It's amazing. And just like, what are the chances? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. What are the odds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, like in times like when I felt like I want to give up, or like I felt so uneasy with like these symptoms I try to overcome, I remind myself, like, try to appreciate everybody that comes into your life, and remind yourself that there's always something to learn, and that every single person is a learning opportunity. So it really like helped me demonstrate gratitude towards our encounter. Even if nothing was going to come out of it, I was still going to be very grateful for having met this person. So I think it's openness to experience that would really enlarge the possibility of finding love.
Yeah, if you try and avoid it forever because it's easier and doesn't hurt as much in the moment, you're missing out on lots of, like you said, learning opportunities, but lots of cool people and chances. And the more you avoid, the more anxious you become about the thing that you're avoiding, right?
Yeah.
So you got to exposure therapy your way out of it.
Just go out and have fun, and if you're not having fun, you're gonna end up having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. It's a little opposite action. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Super Feeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Super Feeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Super Feelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.